Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the Whitfield Report. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, recording here from NGC Studios, and I want to thank you so very much for listening. I actually have a guest for today's podcast. I know that on Thursdays I usually do a solo kind of rant style podcast, something political or something in the culture war or something like that. But today I wanted to take some time to sit down with one of my new favorite up and coming podcasters, Robbie Robertson, who hosts Out of the Blank, which is a good podcast. I was on his podcast a few weeks ago. And my podcast on his podcast, if that makes any sense, may or may not be out at the time you're hearing this. But regardless, Robbie and I had a great conversation on this podcast when we recorded tonight. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy this episode. Robbie Robinson is just a great guy. We talked about several topics, including podcasting, just human nature, music, video games, movies, comic books. We didn't really cover anything political, but I think we covered things that were actually more important than just politics. We covered a whole gamut of topics, and after all, folks, I know that that's what you guys come here for, is just to hear interesting perspectives from interesting people, and of course, interesting perspectives from your host. But it was very good to hear from my friend Robbie Robertson. Great podcast, great guy. I think you guys will like him, and I sure as hell do. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the up and coming powerhouse of podcasting, Mr. Robbie Robertson. All right, folks. So, welcome to the Whitfield Report Thursday edition. And as mentioned before, I'm here with podcaster Robbie Robertson of the Out of the Blank podcast, which I thoroughly enjoy. And a lot of you guys know Robbie's background already from the intro I did. But anyway, I rarely get a chance to talk with other podcasters. So, first of all, Robbie, I want to welcome you to the program. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Dude, that introduction made it sound like I was about to be on like a documentary or something. It was pretty interesting. I liked it.
Well, thank you. So, but I just like to converse with other people as you do. So, first off, I kind of want to get into the topic of, we're both podcasters, and I don't know you, but I rarely get to talk to other people who actually produce podcasts. So, I kind of want to get into like how you got into podcasting, first as like a listener, and then kind of what made you decide to do your show in the format that you do it, because it's fascinating the way you do your podcast.
Uh so how I got into it. I for a long time was working out. I mean, I still work out, but like every day for 7 years now, and I've always listened to something while I was working out, and it was always like a Joe Rogan podcast. And it was like I was listening to it, and at one point, like last year, I was like, why am I not doing this? And I just decided, hey, maybe I should start one. But the real basis for it really came down when a buddy of mine was experiencing something I was experiencing, just being kind of feeling like you're in the same routine and life's just going to be the same thing over and over again, where there was nothing new added on to it. And, after a couple hour talk, kind of talked him down from the ledge in a way. I realize that like we're all going through like this depressive state, and we need a way for our voice to be heard, but not in the type of tweeting sense where you can tweet something and next thing you get a million likes, million shares, million that acceptance that everyone gets. It's the concept of you have stuff that people are going to be interested talking about, whether it's a certain niche, like for you, focusing on like political things and talking to people, uh, doing interviews. For me, I didn't like interviews, but I liked finding stuff out more about people. I try and stick to the basis of conversations,
Yeah,
but
same here.
it it always usually kind of seems a little bit structured. But I tell people like, ask me anything you want. If you want to butt in while I'm talking, go ahead. You know what I mean? I'm down to just understand, at least take an hour to at least understand everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm kind of the same way as we kind of talked beforehand. I mean, this isn't really an interview. I much the same way. I like to think of myself as kind of a lazy interviewer. When I have to work under the kind of the Q&A interview format, I don't know why. It's not that I think I'm a fake interviewer, but I think like the interview format has just kind of been so structured that it's kind of fake in a sense. So
Well,
I
your
kind
idea of it would be people are already kind of living a pretty structured lifestyle. You kind of want to change it up a little bit, man. Like, when one day you decide, I'm going to sleep with socks on instead of taking my socks off. It's just about adding something different into your life, which kind of seems like it ends up being boring and bland. I mean, how many times do you wake up and it's the same routine over and over again?
yeah. Well, I mean, and I think having some routine is good, but yeah, I mean, I think kind of the monotony of, you know, um,
You should definitely be showering. That's definitely a good thing to keep in the routine. But when you're
yeah,
doing the same thing over and over again, and a lot of people are doing nowadays, they're just going home and trying to sleep. They don't go out and experience the world anymore because it's just too hard or it's too much. You know what I mean? It's much easier just to roll in the bed and watch Netflix all day. As much as that is awesome, especially after a long work day, it's not super super healthy to do that every single day for years and years and years. Eventually you become very disconnected from the world around you.
one of the things too that I kind of find is interesting about, the conversational podcast spirit like you and I have is we can start talking about like one thing, and then end up on like a completely different subject, like
Aliens,
yeah, yeah,
Bigfoot,
aliens.
hot pockets, name it, they all go down the line.
Well, they're all interconnected at some level too.
I believe Bigfoot rides in a giant UFO, probably eating a hot pocket.
Well, there you go. Um, I listened to I listened to one of your podcasts recently where you were talking with the UFO, where you weren't talking with like a UFO guy. I forget the guy's name, but he's the guy who kind of runs one of the conspiracy podcasts out there, or I guess the alternative science, and that's a real interesting topic because you don't really hear like a lot about that in and of itself.
Are you talking about my buddy Robert who runs the Uncanny Earth?
Yeah, yeah, Uncanny Earth. I was blanking on the name, so
See,
there for a
what's
sec.
crazy is I don't have a dumb bar limit when it comes to the amount of things I can remember. I remember every single conversation with every single person I've had. I've podcasted with hundreds of people across the globe, and it's interesting, man, because everybody's got different things about them that makes them unique, but we all come down to the same basis when we start thinking about these mysteries to life and also the fascination that people are really, really weird in the world today. Not in weird like that guy's got four toes on one foot, but the whole idea like weird as in they don't like how everything around them seems like a giant act or ploy.
Well, the one thing that I really don't like today is kind of how everyone self censors themselves, and I say that like obviously I don't want, someone going out there and propagating like actual blatant hate speech, that like really is hate speech. But at the same time, it feels like a lot of people are kind of guarded as to like what we've as to like what we're allowed to say now in like polite society, because I like everyone's afraid of getting shamed, or and like not even in the political realm, just kind of in general. It seems like a lot of people just, generally in public these days, kind of tend to either put on an act or whatnot because they feel like it's socially acceptable. Whereas
Well,
I'm,
we structure ourselves off like a gym that works 9 to 5. That's not me. I mean, I do work a 9 to 5, but I don't, it's not what I want to be displayed as. I want to be displayed as, Robbie. I want to be displayed as me, as a person, my thoughts, my emotions, my feelings. I try not to hide any of that in real life. Yeah, I do get
right.
pissed off at the people in the store that are looking down at their cell phone, but I try and understand it from an open-minded point of view. I've tried to be more open-minded, at least just to the concept of there's so many possibilities out there. I can't really rule off anything with a certain specification or something.
Sure. I do think though that it's interesting because I mean, social media has like a lot of positives in the sense that, you and I were able to connect like out of the blue. I think I found you on Reddit, like in the podcasting Reddit, and that was just like I wasn't even looking for like shows to go on at that point. You just popped up in my Reddit feed, so that's like a positive thing of social media. But then like I just see so many stupid like fights over nothing, too, on like social media too.
Oh yeah,
And it's
Facebook started out with nothing but people complaining on stuff. They were just constantly bitching about their day or problems, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like Twitter's that. Twitter's just one hit wonder comedians like posting a funny line or something they think of, and then there's also just constantly people just fighting all over the place, all over social media, whatever it is. There's someone that has to throw their opinion in the ringer. And I'm like, does that even matter? The concept, like the fact that stand-up comedians cannot do their art or act anymore on the concept of that they're going to offend somebody. And when they do say something outrageous, there's like, people are like, oh, you just said that. It's like, but it's a joke. You paid for a comedy show. You should know what you're getting into. Someone's going to tell jokes. You might not like it.
right. Like this whole thing. I'm kind of glad you brought that up because I did kind of want to ask you. It seems like you and I are both very into um comedy. I don't do comedy, but I'm like a comedy enthusiast, as I put in my Twitter bio. So like I watch a lot of specials too, and I haven't seen Dave's new special yet. I'm gonna try and watch that after we get done here. But like all there's this controversy like surrounding Dave Chappelle and like surrounding like other comedians, like Louis C.K. is another perfect example. Like you know
Dave Chappelle actually talks about Louis C.K. in his new special too.
yeah,
Everyone wants to talk about the new Dave Chappelle special because everything he said, everyone's like, oh, he just said that.
right.
Okay, but everything he said is true. We have an outrageous look at what things offend us. We are focusing on the wrong thing as humankind. We're focused on like LGBT. Oh, you can't make fun of them. You can't make fun of someone's interest. You can make fun of literally anything. There's a extent to it though. There's a point when it's comedy and there's a point when it's bullying, okay? The problem is bullying became so impactful into society today where kids were committing suicide and truly actually being hurt by it, all because of the fact that bullying used to be a formative thing as a kid, okay? I was bullied pretty bad, but it formed me to be able to turn into the fitness freak I am today. Yeah, there's a good thing about it and a bad thing about it.
Sure. Same with me. Like I brought up the fact, and my audience knows, and your audience, if they've heard the podcast with me, they know that I'm in a wheelchair. Like and believe it or not, like that's when I got bullied. Like that was actually not what I got bullied for most of the time. Most of the time, it was like for other stuff too, and like, like that's the other thing too is like, you know, kids are the kids who are bullies to like one person or to one individual or to one group. They tend to be assholes to everyone, and that's just people in general. I've noticed. So
I think it's like you see one kid bullying another kid. Now, you can choose to look at that pain and let it stop you from progressing forward. I know I've had my moments where it's been like, I don't want to go to fucking school, man. Or you try and avoid someone in the hallway. You know those fearful moments just because you don't know how to deal with the situation. It's especially if you're someone that doesn't handle stress well. But the problem is social media has been a benefit and a very huge detriment to society today. The concept of people are going to say something they would not say to a person's face because they're hiding behind a screen is a very big problem. It makes you be irrational in your types of thinking, and it makes you be irrational on the things that you would say to somebody. You wouldn't normally say this certain hurtful comment to someone if they were face to face in front of you. So why would you say it online? Well, the idea you're hiding behind a screen. That makes it very difficult for anybody to see a rationalization in what they're saying. Plus, everything on the internet kind of stays forever. There's people that used to create pages on other kids, making fun of them the whole time, and then those kids would commit suicide. So people became very sensitive. Parents became very sensitive. People started realizing that there's a side to people where if they get pushed to the point, they'll end it all. So that makes it very, very, we kind of tilted, I guess, the line for that. We
yeah,
brought it closer to being more sensitive. So when Dave Chappelle's special came out, I laughed outrageously at it. He could have made fun of me. I've listened to black comedians make fun of white comedians. I don't believe in race. I believe comedy's funny in no matter what aspect. But I also believe that you have to realize
wait,
everything
wait,
he was
wait, wait,
saying.
wait. Robbie, you said you don't believe in you said you don't believe in race.
Well, when I say I don't believe in race, race is a thing. Obviously, there's different people that are different, whatever ethnicities, all these different types of
Right.
things. But I've been a minority. I still am a minority at my job today, so I know what it's like to understand the concept of white privilege. I know what that is. I understood. I was never comfortable even around people that are white, even around people that are the same skin color as me. I actually felt that I vibed more with people of a different skin color, only on the concept of I never felt. I mean, I at my work, I work on an all Latina housekeeping staff, so I know what it's like to have that kind of stigma of being the only white person on a staff and trying to break through that race border. But I
Sure.
saw that as a thing I needed to fix in myself.
Right.
See,
I was kind of like I was gonna make a joke that it's 2019 and you're not woke enough if you don't and see like that's the other thing is like I mean racism and this sticks a lot of people off when I say this, but racism can work both ways, and it can like I've met racist white people and I've met racist black people, and on the flip side I've met terrific people of all skin colors. And so,
what I learned to judge is the fact that you treat me with respect, I'm going to treat you with respect, no matter who you are, no matter what you are. As long as you're always right by me, I'll do right by you. But the concept of people don't understand and can't look past the race barrier. There are so many people that are closed off to it. It's taken me forever to break down the race barrier at my work. Now, these people that I've worked with for 2 to 3 years now, they are like my family in a way, even though we're not connected at all. But I've seen the side of them that is caring. I've seen them like where they would feel uncomfortable, one Latino person being around an all white group of people, where they would feel uncomfortable and out of place. I saw that in myself and I realized that was something I needed to fix. Why the hell am I feeling uncomfortable around people that don't look like me? Is it because it's not familiar? Well, maybe I need to fix that. And I
right,
did. I don't get uncomfortable around that. Actually, I'm more interested into what they are like, what they're interested in. It's it's eye-opening. I think a lot of people are scared of what's different, and when something is different, we're not open to it. We're closed off because it's new.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the case for like you know aside from race, I think that's like the case for like 90 percent of things. Like I like when one of my friends came out as like one of my friends came out as gay, and like I'll admit it was kind of weird at first. It wasn't necessarily because I was like against him being gay. It was just kind of like at that time I had never really like I had heard of you know gay people, but like and like I knew that they existed, but like one had never actually existed like in my personal life that I knew about that was open about it. And so like it was new, but then like, kind of talking with them about it. Like I realized that like they were still the same person, pretty much, and I was still the same person, and we were still able to be like, buddies. It was just like that one thing about them. It wasn't like they weren't going to be able to, I wasn't going to be able to give them like girls' phone numbers anymore, or anything like that. So, you know,
That's crazy that you think of that. So just that having that kind of like change in your life, did that find that you were a little bit kind of just freaked out a little bit, even though it might have been your friend or something? Do you find that that was something you might needed to fix in yourself?
it was more of the case of like it wasn't so much that I had a problem. It was like it was more like this is new, and you know like there at the time there was like a whole kind of mythos around like people being gay, and like this was only like 6 years ago, but keep in mind like in 6 years things change. And so like there was like a whole mythos that like at least kind of where I came from in Colorado, that if your friend was gay, he would hit on you. And like I didn't really believe that, but like I guess I just had like more questions for the guy than anything, and he had questions kind of for me, like looking on the other side. And it, like I said, it was interesting because it was kind of like, oh well, you're gay, um but you know
Like
what's
for me, like I one of my buddies kind of came out as gay, and I literally just went with it. I was like, is that gonna stop me from hanging out with you? Hell no. Like we're
right.
still gonna be cool as shit. But like it, it was crazy because he said it, and then I immediately gave him this like joke response where he felt like he was comfortable again. Like immediately him telling me that he felt like I was gonna react in some way, that he was scared to lose me as a friend. And the first thing I said was like, dude, I always knew you like to suck dick, as a joke.
Right.
But it was like I want you to feel normal around me. I don't want you acting something that you're not. If you are truly that, then be it. Be yourself. Why are we all so worried about what others are going to think of us and truly forget who we are because we're just scared that no one's going to like the true us?
Well, I made a joke to my friend, and he laughed about it. I said, dude, like I have no problem that you're gay, just kind of ripping off Louis C.K.'s joke. Just don't be a fag about it. So and we had like a good chuckle about that. So um you know and I mean, kind of again going back to the comedy, going back to the whole comedy thing. I mean, I find that like a lot of this stuff that I think tears us apart, like if we could learn to laugh at ourselves more and to not take everything so seriously, I think the world would be like a lot, better. Now, I mean, obviously there are some things that we should take seriously, but like, I just, I feel like the world makes serious thing.
Well, it creates tension in a place there
Yeah.
shouldn't be tension. We're looking at really unrealistic ways of expressing hatred and anger towards the dumbest, stupidest jokes and comments someone can make. We're letting it take control of our lives rather than just be a quick instance where we're like, that's not right, and then walk away from it. But we decide that investing more of our time into that and trying to get this person condemned for the jokes they crack on stage or the jokes they say or the things they think, and we try so hard to change their view. It's like people think things for a reason. They've had experiences through life. They have thoughts on the world. They've understood. This is how they come to grasp with some things. This isn't like being a teacher and you're trying to teach all these people that they're wrong and you're right. No, this is people have different thoughts. You sitting there trying to change their thoughts is not going to do anything. They have to try and come to that realization in their self if they're wrong, or you have to come to that realization in yourself.
And I'm glad you bring that up. One of the other things that kind of bugs me about, the state of the world is, people, and I mean, it happens in all types of situations, but like specifically with Louis C.K., right? Like someone, and I mean, I guess same thing happened with, I can't remember who's the comedian that got like kicked out of hosting the Oscars.
Kevin Hart?
Yeah, Kevin Hart. And
Kevin Hart's was different, though.
I mean,
Well, hold on. Dave Chappelle talked about this in his new special. Dave Chappelle talked about Kevin Hart, how that's his one dream was doing that. And they pulled up a tweet from like 10 years ago where he
right,
talked about something about gay people. He said that if his son was gay, he'd bash him in the head with a dollhouse or something. Some
right.
stupid joke. But they look at that one little thing that he said in his whatever digital footprint and forget immediately everything that he's done that's been amazing, charities, his whole
Right.
rational way of thinking. But no one looks at that when we say something about Hillary Clinton, where she used to not be for same-sex marriage, and then next thing you know, she's for same-sex marriage. That didn't even really bother anybody. The people were just still kind of went with the notion of Hillary Clinton. And I'm like, so then why are we condemning Kevin Hart for something he said 10 years ago when Hillary Clinton said something even kind of like weird where she was totally against gays by saying that 5 years ago? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, and yeah, I mean that's ludicrous. Even with like more of an extreme situation with like Louis. Like, look, I'm not necessarily condoning what he necessarily did. It's weird, but the one thing that everyone seems to forget with like Louis is that he said, "Look, I fucked up. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I was younger. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'm sorry." And so, you know what? Like the other thing I've learned about myself and just about people is people fuck up. People make mistakes, and I think to a certain extent, people do deserve a second chance. But now we also live in a society where it's like, whether it be Kevin Hart just making like an innocent joke or Louis C.K. who, did do something, bad and wants forgiveness, we kind of are like, well, no, you have to be perfect 100% of the time. There's no chance for redemption. And I just think that's ridiculous. So.
I think it's a concept that you got to see Dave Chappelle's new special, dude. Because after this
Yeah.
podcast, well, post the podcast first and then watch the special. Because then you'll be like, "Damn, I should have watched the special before the podcast came out." Because everything you said, he talks about Louis, talks about all this stuff. It's the concept we put more belief in celebrities than we do with our politicians, the people that are supposed to be running the government.
Well, I don't know if you've listened to Ben Shapiro very much, and I mean I don't want to force the issue of politics if you're not comfortable in bringing it up. But one of the things that Ben Shapiro brings up, and granted he's conservative, but I think he makes a pretty good point, is on both sides we've tended to make our politicians celebrities now, starting with the Kennedy family, really. And, that really, I mean, obviously has some benefits, but again, like our politicians shouldn't be celebrities. They should, they work for us, not the other way around. And so the kind of celebrity culture around leaders just has always kind of grossed me out
I
to a
think
certain
the
extent.
attention span of people nowadays, you can chalk it up to the same example as seals clapping their hands or that whole thing. We're looking for something so simple just to entertain our brains, and the simplest thing to do is vote a president who's a celebrity. We want that. It's going to turn into that movie. I forgot what it's called with Terry Crews, where they're spraying the crops with that energy drink or that Powerade type substance. And it's like, we have a president, Terry Crews, who's literally like whatever their judgments on people, like their court case is based in a monster truck arena. And they just have to survive while being tied to a boulder. That's what we're going to get to. We're going to get to a point where television and these types of technology is going to make our life so damn easy that we forget how to take care of ourselves. You're seeing people bathe less because they get hooked onto video games, or they go into these binges they play for days. Hell, I'm one of those people sometimes, depending on the day. And then you get people that go out and still try and do stuff in the world today, but then they get too aggressive because the concept of they're used to being aggressive online in a video game where it's not going to truly affect anybody's life. And then they go and project that and forget where the video game anger and the real life anger kind of coincide. You're going to get more aggressive if you don't know how to connect with people, if you don't know how to talk to people, if you don't deal with your problems correctly. And that's what creates a really bad environment around the world around you, where you're constantly screaming and berating at people in stores and people that are working just because your attention span it's been lost.
Well, that's also why I think sometimes it's beneficial to just to like unplug, to a certain extent, and like go outside for 40, 5 minutes, and just like take a walk. Don't have your music, don't really have anything. Like sometimes I'll go outside like on the weekends and I'll just like, roll on the neighborhood just for like, half an hour just with like, and all I have is my Apple Watch really to check the time. And it's stuff like that. We live in such like a connected and, digitized world that sometimes I think, it gets to be a bit much. And so, I mean, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but that is kind of one of the things that worries me a bit about this whole idea of, virtual reality, and VR goggles are kind of the new things that are coming out. Because I don't know about you, but despite all my setbacks in life, I kind of like the reality that we live in. So,
I mean, I love the world. I really do. I love that we have a lot to learn. I love the mysteries that it does hold. But I find that we choose to focus on the dumbest parts and the dumbest things. It becomes our main critical focus.
yeah.
I'm interested in why people choose to be like this. And it's kind of like, I've tried to podcast with people and they go, "What's your topic? What's your questions? I'm like, there is none. It's conversation. It's not so hard." But people don't know what that word means anymore. It's kind of
Right.
scary in a way.
Right. The way I kind of explain my podcast, at least when I interview people, I'm like, okay, so for the way I explain my solo podcast is I'm like, okay, have you ever heard of Bill Burr? And some people are like, no, but then like a lot of them are like, yeah. I'm like, I do Bill Burr's podcast. And when I do solo podcast, it's just me kind of ranting into the ether of, you know, whatever is in my mind, and it's therapeutic. I said other times when I'm interviewing people, I like to think of it as I'm at a bar and I just start chatting with the guy next to me about whatever, and just a natural conversation starts and we go from there.
Yeah, I think it's like I relate a lot of things to Bill Burr, because let me tell you, I relate with Bill Burr on such a level. The fact that like he talks about cursing, and he's like, he'll randomly be like looking for something. He's like, "Shit, where did I put that fucking thing?" And then someone goes, like his wife goes up to him and goes, "Are you angry? Why are you upset?" And he's like, "No, I'm just cursing because I'm cursing. I'm not upset at you. I'm just cursing. Like, why are you yelling? Oh my God." And he talks about that in one of his comedy specials. And I'm like, that is 100% true, because I curse in my everyday life and people think I'm angry all the time. I'm like, no, it's like, it's a minor stress relief. Literally it is. If you drop like, shit, I forgot to freaking put the dishes away, or shit, whatever, the list goes on and on. If you just incorporate that more in your life, you're going to feel a hell of a lot better. It literally creates these little minor fractions of stress that you basically kind of come together with on like a daily basis. It's like a little bit of therapy, but in the smallest form that you wouldn't even think of.
Yeah, I swear a lot too. And I'll admit, like, even in public, I don't swear a lot, but like I curse under my breath a lot too. Like, even like, 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 fuck, I'm late for class. It's not like I'm, upset or anything. It's just, I also like to express myself in that medium. And the other thing is, um I one of the other things is kind of weird to me is every time I go to the doctor for like a yearly exam or whatever, and they're like, "So are you stressed out about anything?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a college student and I have a lot of, term papers to write, and all this stuff." They're always like, "Well, I'd like to write you like a prescription, for so and so." And I'm like, I'm not depressed and I'm not suicidal. I'm just saying that, like, I have, stress like everyone else, and it's normal. And like that's the other thing is, like, everyone kind of wants like a pill for everything now. And like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it does seem like, we are kind of living in like a Fahrenheit 451 type of thing where everyone's just kind of baked on the TV set and everyone's taking happy pills now.
Yeah, I think the world's looking for a way to cope with all the pain they face us on like an everyday basis. It's difficult though, man. Like, man, just talking about it throws you into a depressive slump. I mean, I try my best to kind of focus on the best aspects of life, but it gets a little hard when it seems like the world's just constantly shitting on you 24/7.
Oh, sure. I have those moments. I have those moments too. But and like I'm not someone who who is I have my down days as well. But I mean, I think it's I I think humanity is both horrible and wonderful at the same time. And I just always try and look to, well, as long as I'm breathing, there's always tomorrow. And I'm going to try and make the best, even if I was like a complete lazy ass, or if the day sucked or whatever.
I think that humanity has two sides to it, like a coin. One side is like the gas station sushi at 7-Eleven. It's good at first, and then afterwards you're in pain for like the next 4 days to where you think you're experiencing stomach cancer. And then there's the taquitos on the roller at 7-Eleven that you're like, it's so good. What was I missing out on with these taquitos at the freaking gas station? They're amazing. And the guy's just looking at you like, how are you swallowing that? They've been there all day, and you're just like, dude, this is what I needed was that buffalo. It was that buffalo chicken, bro. And
I
then I love that. I think that's what I'm looking for in the world. I'm looking for that buffalo taquito at 2 o'clock in the morning that satisfies me.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that. For me, and for me that's like that's the Trader Joe's crab cheese wonton things at two in the morning, as well. So um now are you much of a gamer on like another subject, or?
I'm on all things, man. I try and dive into everything, dude. I'm a gamer. I've been gaming out on World of Warcraft like it's nobody's business.
I've been getting into like the really old. Well, I mean, I guess they're not like super old, but they're the older version of the Grand Theft Auto games. I've been playing through Vice City a lot.
Nothing's better than killing a couple hookers and ordering some chicken.
That
You
that
know it's true, dude. Let me tell you something. You can't do that in everyday life. And when you go into a video games do not produce anger or violence. Video games is a form of therapy because when you create a character, when you play a character, you literally can be free to do whatever the fuck you want.
I
And sadly, when parents see a 13-year-old kid beating up hookers and throwing them into cars, they're like, my son's an animal. I'm like, no, your son's just releasing the stress from his teacher giving him detention. So he goes on to this little video game, plays as this guy, and it just puts himself in a whole new form. That's the true way of displaying a character, not what we're doing today in our everyday lives.
I agree. Although I will say too that uh, loot boxes have kind of ruined gaming gaming for me now. And I mean, yeah, I guess I'm one of those people that likes to bitch about loot boxes, but it's like it takes you out of the fantasy now. That's why I like to play older games as opposed to newer games. I just miss the game. I just miss the days where you bought a game and it was like fucking complete, and expansion packs were like an optional thing. So
I find it really, really interesting about video games. Like one of my favorites is Assassin's Creed because it kind of gives like a little bit of a history lesson in a way, but also makes it like you're incorporated in it with this assassin. And that's where I became fascinated with Leonardo da Vinci, where I actually picked up books on Leonardo da Vinci and started learning more about him, and also learning more about ancient mythology and these types of things. And I find that games can do that; they can break down a way
oh
uh,
yeah.
to this other world. I found myself fascinated with just older historical things like witches and all these types of things, on the concept of it creates a type of fantasy lifestyle where I can understand someone going with foam swords and dressing up like these characters and doing that live action role playing on that you see in fields where you're like, these people have no lives. I'm like, no, they're truly happy because they can truly be something that they can't be every day in public anymore.
Well, I mean, that's kind of why I think that's like the same reason why people like comic books so much, and not just the movies, but like one of so I'm a big comic book aficionado,
Who's
and
your favorite comic book character?
uh geez, well,
Superhero, whatever.
probably Daredevil, and I actually liked Daredevil before the whole uh Netflix series came out, which is I'm still pissed off that they canceled the Marvel TV shows on Netflix. But
The movie was the shit, dude. I remember seeing that movie. The fact that he like sonar like a bat, that was pretty insane. Now,
yeah,
is he your favorite Marvel character?
yeah, he's my favorite Marvel character. As far as like all-time favorite, like I guess superhero, or I guess comic character, I would still have to say Batman, just because you get a lot into psychology, and like also people bring this up all the time. It's true. Like I could see someone with like a lot of money, like Elon Musk, could totally be a Batman type person. He has the money, he has he has a tech company, so he could probably build whatever he wants. But it's stuff like that. I mean, people bitch about comic books, but the reality is it's just the American version of mythology. That's all it is. I mean, the Greeks did the same thing with the gods, and we're supposed to study them in school, but yet, teachers crap on comic books, for not being educational. It's the same thing.
Like, I see. I disagree because I think I podcast with people. Like one of my influences into working out, bodybuilder. He works at my gym. Nicest guy, wears constant superhero t-shirts, constant superhero everything. Just amazing, like the true definition of a nerd. But it's like you see these big bodybuilder type guys, they're wearing Captain America shirts, and they're all like nerds. They look like literally the concept of what you would think of as like a superhero junkie or comic book junkie. And he told me his start into bodybuilding started from going to the store with a little bit of allowance. And we podcasted about it. It was like one of my 5th episodes or something. And he was telling me like, yeah, the start happened when I was just picking up comic books, and I had a fascination with making comic books and drawing these characters. And I realized that I was like drawing their bodies. I was like, this is something I want to be, a modern day superhero. And he went after bodybuilding and chased it down, and now he's a personal trainer and stuff. And that was eye opening for me to
That
understand that.
that's
And
awesome.
I have a buddy that I podcast with too. His name's Evan. He wants to teach biology to people. He wants people to understand better environmental things about biology and the things we can do with plants and things we can do with technology. He also believes you should put a chip in the back of your head, but we differ on different things, obviously. But he wants to create it in a comic book form to help people understand, like, there's a superhero that has like this massive amount of intelligence that's able to kind of use his science and these type of things to create these amazing things like wildlife and creatures and all these types of things. I'm like, that's what's awesome about comic books. It's literally like reading a book, but there's cool ass art to it.
Yeah, pretty much, and like that's the same thing with with acting too. Like the reason why, like, a lot of people are kind of pessimistic, and they're like, well, the reason why people get into acting is because they hate their real lives and they probably want to just be someone else. Well, like in the case of Keanu Reeves, though, for one example, like he seems to enjoy his normal life, but also, like, the guy must have like a blast playing John Wick or playing Neo, and just getting to play around in like those alternate realities. So of
So okay, now I got a big question for you.
yes.
Green Lantern movie, did you like it or hate it?
I I didn't hate it. I didn't love it, but I liked it, actually.
Thank you, because a lot of people give that movie shit. Even Ryan Reynolds, the guy who played Green Lantern, gave it shit. I think they could have did better, but Green Lantern has not had a movie that, he hasn't had a movie. He hasn't had anything that really gives his character anything. So I found it very, very fascinating. Then I saw Shazam. Bro, let me tell you something. There's these heroes that don't get looked at as much as Spider-Man and all these other ones. And I'm like, they have the best storylines, though. Like, seriously, like any type of movie, like the Green Lantern movie, when that came out and I saw it, I was a giant Green Lantern fan. He's one of my favorite heroes. I immediately loved it, even if I didn't like a lot of the things they did with it. Only on the concept of there wasn't another movie I could be like, oh, that Green Lantern movie was better. No, there wasn't another one out there. It's just that one. You
I
know,
Well, that's really why I liked that's really why I like the Daredevil. I mean, I even like the Ben Affleck one. Like, yeah, it's not like comic accurate compared to like the series, but like it's still a damn good movie. And I mean, the other thing is, like, there's a lot more there are a lot more people in the comic industry going over into the film industry, and so, like, these older films, like, yeah, we love to like look at them through the looking glass, of like 2019, or like the current year. But like a lot of these older movies, like kind of like the Green Lantern or like the Daredevil movie, were pretty good, damn good
who
in
do you like
reality.
better, Anne Hathaway as Catwoman or Halle Berry?
In terms of looks, or just as a whole?
Just answer the question.
I would say Anne Hathaway, but my all-time favorite would
What? Are you shitting me? Halle Berry's hot as hell.
my all-time, none of them will ever beat Michelle Pfeiffer though.
Damn, dude. I don't know. Halle Berry was hot, man. I still like Halle Berry.
Halle Berry was people forget she was a Bond girl. She was a pretty damn good Bond girl
Eh,
too.
I like a superhero movie that shows structure too. Like, all right, so here's another one then. Who do you like better as Spider-Man, Tom Holland, or do you like Tobey Maguire?
Uh, because I grew up with him, I've got to say Tobey Maguire.
All right, good. I was about to end this conversation. He's Spider-Man in my mind because I was like, if he says all right, so people say sometimes I look like Tom Holland. Like I got a compliment a couple of times from different people saying I look like Tom Holland. I'm like, screw you. Like why? Like, it's a compliment. I'm like, no, it's not. I freaking hate Tom Holland. I actually will not go see any of the Spider-Man movies because of Tom Holland.
Why? Why? What? I
I
mean,
think he's a good part for who Peter Parker is, but I do not like him as a person. I wouldn't say I hate him. I just don't like. I don't know. He seems like he's got a freak in the mind a little bit. He's
is
a
it
little bit.
because he's British? Do you dislike British people, Robbie?
I love British people. I have some friends that are British, but I think it's weird they call it tea and crumpets because I don't like tea. And you call it fish and chips. What the hell does that mean? Call it food.
Well,
Drive on the right side of the road, please.
I agree. I agree with that. So also, can we stop worshiping the Queen of England? She doesn't do anything
I think it's
anymore.
really, really weird we have royal families. I hear that. Like you hear he's royalty. I'm like, what makes him royal? Just where he came from? Does he have pure blood or something? Like we all know that there's a difference between purebred dogs and then mutts. It turns out purebreds, when you hear purebreds, you should think inbred because that means they're not breeding outside of their gene circle.
Right.
So that's why they experience a bunch of defects. Like a purebred bulldog is literally it dies at a short age because the fact it can't breathe. Is born with a list of health problems, and we could fix that easily by just letting them breed outside of their species type or their whatever variant they are. But we don't do that because we like the look of the English bulldog. I'm like, that's messed up. We're literally going to create an animal just for it to suffer just because we like the looks a lot better.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with like I can't remember which royal prince was getting in trouble, but it was either like one of them was getting in trouble for like marrying Kate Middleton, or one of them was getting in trouble for like marrying an American. I can't remember which, but I'm like in either case, they're both hot. So what's the I'm like I guarantee you that neither the princes were thinking about politics when they made that decision. And that's the other thing. Is like if you're royal and you're thinking of marriages for like purely political structure, that's odd because again it's not 1590 anymore. So
Well, if you look at a king, it was just one person with a lot of power. And that power went straight to their heads. So I'm like looking at the idea, like, why are we trying to look at a royal family as better than us just because they dress fancy, just because they do this? And why is it the concept of if you're going to think like be polite and be correct, you have to think of an English person? Like, be like an English person. They're more proper. I'm like, why are we doing that? And I'm pretty sure there's some English people. I know some English people that are slobs. You know what I mean? It's like we focus too much on comparisons. I'm like, what is going on?
all of my favorite Brits. This is another thing. What type of music do you like in in general?
I like all types of music, man. My whole family's in radio broadcasting, so I've listened to everything under the sun. I don't like stuff that seems lazy, but I understand the whole aspect of it. Um, but I really do like one of my favorite types if I was going to listen to music, reggae, a little bit of like rock, you know. Like I
Nice.
said, my parents are broadcasters, so I've been under the sun with it, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I like all types of music too. I'm a I mean, my music tastes are pretty eclectic too, but like just on kind of like day to day basis, I kind of I range around like the jazz area, but then I'll but then I'll progress like all the way over to rock and roll. And it's funny that you bring up reggae because like I don't know if you know the band The Police, but The Police is one of my favorite uh bands just because like they combine rock, jazz, and reggae. So
I like see, you know what I found was a really good video game, kind of sticking on the concept of video games, was Rock Band and Guitar Hero.
yes, yes, I love those games, and that was another thing too, where like all the parents were like get a real instrument, and I'm like no, but you just don't get the concept of like what Guitar Hero is. It's just like a fun way to jam. Yeah, and plus, there's no way that a bunch of like 13-year-old kids, unless they're super dedicated, are going to be able to play like Enter Sandman or something like that. In like three
Well,
hours.
it helps them see what that fascination, if you're not musically talented, it helps them see that aspect of what it's like to be talented as a musician and get the popularity that you would in a band. My whole family came from bands, okay? Everyone in my family is still in a band. I'm the only one that isn't in a band. Have you ever heard the band Kiss?
Yes.
Okay, my dad plays in a Kiss tribute band that's actually pretty popular, and he dresses up like Peter Criss. Now, I know that from me as a child. My dad was the Cat Man. My dad was, it was crazy seeing him dress up in makeup. I actually went to one of the concerts, and
Nice.
he played at Rams Head Live in Baltimore, like this popular thing in front of like I think it was like 700 people or something. And seeing him just like on stage was the craziest thing, man. I remember my dad every concert breaks drumsticks. Every single even at practice he breaks drumsticks. He used to have a bag of drumsticks in the back of his truck just so he could pull them out. They're literally like a thing of wizard wands, I thought. Literally, he had some that had these like really comfortable grip handles and stuff. And I remember he broke a drumstick at this performance and then was throwing it out into the crowd, and I got one. And I just picked it up, and there was confetti blasting out everywhere, glitter, all this type of like stuff towards the end of their show. And I just started grabbing all the confetti on the little stick and just like running around with it. Cause I was literally feeling like I was like the just invincible just because my dad was on stage. And then my mom played and like did cover songs for like Heart, all these types of like rock bands and stuff. And, it's crazy seeing that from your parents. And I was so influenced by it, like through being raised and stuff where it was just seen as normal. You know what I mean? And then everyone in my family's in a band. My brother's in a popular local band, and, they're going on tour. And it's like, for me, music wasn't my thing. But I remember fondly one night, or I think it was the day after Christmas, I got a Rock Band drum set for Christmas. And my dad's like, "You're going to let me play on that, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, we get to play video games together. This is going to be fun." So it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, probably like 14 years old. Rock Band 2, I think, probably just came out.
Yep, I remember that.
And it was crazy because at 2 o'clock in the morning, it was summertime. Or no, we were on Christmas break. And it was like, I was playing School's Out for summer because like it was like technically my summer. I was off for like a week and a half. So I'm playing that at like 2 o'clock in the morning. My dad's just sitting there like watching me play Guitar Hero or Rock Band. And he was like, "Hey, why don't you set up the drum set? Let me play." I'm like, "It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, you're not afraid that people are sleeping in the house?" He's like, "Let's do it." I'm like, "Let's do it." I'm about to play music with my father. This is the dream right here. Next thing I know, it's like 5 minutes into the not even 5 minutes. 5 minutes into setting up, I guess, the game, and like it was like a minute into the song. He broke the fucking drumsticks and then broke the Rock Band drum set.
I'm not surprised. Yeah,
I
that
was like, "Bro, what are you doing?" He's like, "Sorry, man. I was just hitting it like I play drums." I was like, "It's not a real drum set, man. It's not that." And he's like, "I'll buy you another one." But
yeah.
honestly, I rocked too fucking hard. And he just got up and walked away, and I'll never forget that. I will never forget those words.
So is the Catman your favorite Kiss member then because of your dad, or are you even a Kiss fan, or
I am a giant Kiss fan. My dad immediately made
so
sure I was a Kiss fan.
so
There was no other options at that point.
so am I. It's funny because my parents aren't. Even though my mom, she loves Led Zeppelin and she loves the Who, like she loves like a bunch of good bands, but she thinks that Kiss is like too much of like pop rock, which I don't understand. But yeah, I've always loved Gene Simmons, so Gene is kind of like my spirit animal. So for
You like
better or for
really
worse.
you think Gene Simmons is your spirit animal?
Well, he has a huge ego, and so well, I wouldn't say my ego is that big, but it's pretty big for a podcaster. So
I think it's, my dad's gonna hate me if I say anybody else is different, or anybody else is more important than the Cat Man. But like whenever like that stuff around Kiss, I had a rock and roll all night toothbrush. So when you brush your teeth, you're listening to Kiss blasting in through your head. And my dad owned like every single statue, every single CD, every single thing. And like when he works radio broadcasting, multiple different radio stations, and now owns his own. He has all that stuff in his office, just sitting around everywhere. And I've been so influenced by that in a way. I have stories about my childhood. Most kids spent being at home, being babysitted. No, mine was like, don't have a babysitter. Your brother's going to school, so he can't watch you. So come on, we're going to work. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm basically sleeping. Like I'm 5 years old, sleeping on a pillow in a truck. And then next thing I know, bam, we're at his office and I'm running around this radio station basically all day. It was awesome. He set up a TV, played the original Mortal Kombat in the giant office conference room, and he would check on me like every 10 minutes or so, 20 minutes or so, whenever he did a commercial break. And he was just come in and goes, "Need anything, buddy?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm good, man. I got a bag of Skittles, 4 Mountain Dews. I'm set. I don't want to go to school. I just want to do this all day." And he's like, all right, calm down, calm down.
do you think so this brings up an interesting question. So I didn't know that your family was into radio. Do you think radio is going to be around for much longer? Do you think
Yeah, it's gonna,
it still has a place?
it's not gonna ever die out. Sadly, music does adopt to the whole new. It's easier to play music when whatever you want on your phone because you can see what's up next. But a lot of people like talk radio is never gonna die. Just because people want to hear people talk. It's literally just podcasting, but on a giant airwave frequency. And I don't know, man. The radio industry, I don't see it ever leaving just because the concept of people are going to want to. It's like hitting randomize on Spotify or randomize on some music app. You sometimes don't want to pick what's coming up next. Sometimes you just want it something to decide for you. And people like that. People love that aspect. Radio is just, it's too popular. It's where you can get your news. It's where you can get whatever.
I will say that one of the things I miss about radio that you don't get in streaming is I do miss the the DJs that are that like talk over kind of like a song and given information. Like a lot of people find that annoying, but I don't know. I kind of find that endearing that like a DJ is going to go on like a musical journey with you. You know.
I don't
So.
listen to a whole lot of music anymore. I do sometimes, like if I'm feeling it, but I always usually listen to podcasts. But I've had moments where I've been on the radio so many times that I can't even count. And from when I was a little kid, just walking in, my dad be like, "Come in here real quick." I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "I'm about to go on air. I want you to come over." And he just picked me up, put me on his knee, and be like, "When I tell you to, just speak into the microphone." I'm sitting there like little child, dude, like barely in first grade yet. And I'm just sitting there listening. And my dad comes on the radio and goes, "Welcome to 93.5 The Beat. You're listening to Skip Dixon on the radio. And I'm here with my son, Robbie. Why don't you go say hello?" And he would just point the microphone to me and
That's
immediately start like, "Go say something." I'm just like, "Hi." And he goes, "Man, a few words, man, a few words." And like, it was just that connection. Eventually I was just like, I wanted to be on there. People were like asking, "Get your son back on there." My dad was like, he was a voice for our town basically. And our whole community, people would come by. My dad's worked at a list of radio stations, and he just talks about it. He's like, the only reason I ever leave these stations is because they don't run right. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm the program director, so I make sure everything's basically followed. Like, I make sure everything's set up, I make sure everything's going on, make sure there's no dead air. There's times he'd be leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning because he had to go fix a problem at the radio station because something wasn't playing. A lot of people don't understand what goes behind when they hear that dead air, like, oh, someone messed up. Yeah, there's a dude working trying to fix that as we're speaking. You know what I mean? Hopefully it happens sooner than later. But I've seen the whole industry. I know the guys that do the country station that's pretty popular down here, Froggy 99.9. I know all those guys. My dad worked with those people. And everyone knows my dad in the radio business. Like, oh yeah, you're his kid, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, I'm like, I don't use his name for anything. I could easily use his name. Like, he told me when I first started podcasting, hey, why don't you just get a radio segment? You just come on when I'm like after I get off the air, and you just go on and they'll give you your own hour and give you everything. You can reach way more listeners, get your popularity up faster. I told him, no, I'm gonna do this on my own. I got to start my own thing, man. I gotta make this for me. I gotta make this in the way I want to make it, and I gotta make sure that everything I put into it and everything I get out of it is all because of me, and all because of the people that are willing to be on. And he tells me, he's like, but if you can automatically get to the point where I would have wanted to be, like, it took me so hard to get into radio, and then when I finally became this thing that I am now, I would have wished someone would have offered me that when I was your age, because then I would have had a lot more time to get productive. I was like, you won't be productive though. You're just going to feel like you're already complete because you've already been given something. I don't want that.
Right. Right, exactly. I mean, and that was, you kind of already answered my questions. So, like, in regards to your, in regards to podcasting, it seems like your parents were pretty, supportive of that, and that they actually understood what the medium is. So,
Well, they were like, when it first started, it was like, all right, cool. And then, like, as it kind of progressed forward, I've been talking to more people. I think everyone's kind of noticed a change in my personality a little bit. People are like, you're really, really like, you don't kind of talk a whole lot anymore. You more like you sit there and listen, you understand. And I'm like, yeah, I've also experienced a hell of a lot. And I realized that from when I was 17 years old to the point I am now, it's only been 4 years. Uh, I've gained so much knowledge and information just on experiences and thoughts and things that people have experienced. And I realized that's where knowledge is. Knowledge is from experience.
yeah, knowledge is also more like who you know, as opposed to just like what you read, if that makes sense. Like, like, more like, I've learned more from people, and hearing their stories and hearing about their experiences, than I ever have reading like some history book, or reading some biography. Not that books, in education aren't important, but the lessons that have resonated with me are the ones that have been passed from person to person on to me.
Well, so then how'd you, like, you told me, you got into politics because it was something you were interested in at school. You didn't have any family influence that kind of brought up the whole politics genre?
I mean, my mom used to listen to talk radio like a little bit, and I mean, and we don't, the funny thing is, we don't really have any politicians in our family, but like, I don't know, like I said, like, I mainly just kind of like started observing kind of this whole kind of culture war, and everything kind of being, everyone kind of getting more like overly sensitive over just like ridiculous stuff. And like, I mean, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of like hard to kind of explain how I first started, because like where I started and where I am now, like, I'm a completely different person, like when I first started talking politics. Like, I'm definitely like a lot more I mean, I guess some people would say I'm like a lot more neutral, even though I don't think I am. I think a lot of my views have kind of stayed the same. I've just been more aware of who I've become as a person. But I don't know. I guess for me, it kind of started, like listening to talk radio and then just kind of starting to experience kind of what was going on in the world around me and kind of how not even how politics was changing people, but kind of how pop culture and the internet was changing people for the better or for the worse. And I was kind of like, this is really bizarre how like, we used to be able to talk about like complex subjects and like we
Now it
could,
becomes like a dumb fart joke.
well, yeah, or like, you know, or like kind of like I talked about with you on your podcast, the whole idea of like, let's agree to disagree. Like like on gun control. I know that there are several people who think that because of the mass shootings we should ban all guns. I don't think that, banning all guns is going to solve anything because I think that evil people, and they truly do exist. I think the ones who want to cause damage will cause damage no matter what. And I don't think that like restricting guns further will eliminate that. Now, on the flip side, Um, I don't think that we need to necessarily lift any more gun restrictions either. But like I just think that like there is a that like we can talk at these serious issues, and just because I don't want to necessarily restrict guns anymore doesn't mean that like I'm a Nazi that wants to kill kids. And just because someone might want to take guns, that doesn't mean that they're all, like government slave owners or shills. You know what I mean? Like I just don't like kind of the two extremes of like how people are just like at each other's throats.
People
No.
can't defer from a character from the actual person. And it gets
Correct.
harder and harder every single day that the way we fall into this act.
So yeah, it drives me insane somewhat, and that's why I kind of like your podcast, because when I asked you if I could come on, you were like, sure. You weren't like like one of these people that kind of took me out and was like, oh no, you're too controversial or something. I'm like,
Anything that's considered, if you say something is not for somebody, then you've already niched your podcast. I don't do that because I'm a conversationalist. I'm out here to hear everyone's story and everyone's experience. I've had people from Reddit give me some name and some character. My name is Unicorn Fart Puncher 32. I'm like, okay, well, message me through Facebook, sir. They'll literally create a Facebook to message me and try and get on the podcast. And I ended up discovering who these people truly are and then be like, all right, well, let's podcast with this actual person. Stop giving me the fake image you want to display. Next thing I know, I'm learning about a dude that delivers pizza at fucking 2:00 in the morning. And he's like, most of the time we're getting stoners that don't remember their order. I'm like, so how do you get it? He goes, we just look in the system and go to their house. Next thing you know, they're like, man, you saved my life, dude. I was on the brink of starvation. I'm hearing this stuff, and I'm like, these are people. We all have something. We all have something interesting. If you say you're not a fit for my podcast, you're not. You don't value yourself because you have something about you that's truly inspiring and awesome about you, and it's unique. Whether you build IKEA furniture or whether you make your own stained glass or whether you just do something, it's different and it's unique, and I want to hear it.
and I mean that's the other thing. Like I tell people, and like the other thing too, that I think the one limitation of podcasting is still kind of out there is like the whole category thing, which has kind of, I mean, I get why it's there. You have to put your podcast into something, but like I'm in the politics section, but like obviously I talk like way more than just politics. Like I kind of consider myself like a politico slash kind of like a semi comedian slash like just kind of like a conversationalist. And like I always tell people, like, yeah, you might like or dislike my podcast, but like you're welcome to listen to it. And like I guarantee you that like there's going to be people that love your podcast, that love this conversation, and they're probably going to check out, you know, your podcast because of it. And then there's going to be like other people who are like, well, that Robbie sucks and he's like a horrible guest. Don't have him on again. And I'll just say like, okay, I don't, like I appreciate your feedback, but it's my show, and like it's my podcast, and you can tune in if you want, but you know so that's kind of what I like about podcasting too, is you kind of get to do whatever you want in this medium.
Well,
I'm not bad.
you want to run it how you want to run it, man. You have an idea of what you want. The whole idea is capitalizing it and making it into something. A lot of people just don't know what to do with it, and they just look for others' opinions and others' suggested advice. It's okay to take that advice, but make sure that you're still remembering the true aspect of what you want it to be. I've had people say, you would get more views if you limited it to a certain structure, maybe had a certain topic you talk about or a niche audience. I'm like, then I do that, then I'm losing the whole concept of wanting to talk with everyone in the world.
See
And
though,
then also, if I do that, I'm limiting myself to a certain audience. Yeah, it might get me more views, but this is the one thing I hate about YouTube when I upload to it, is it tells me it's views. When I upload to Anchor, when I upload to all these podcast platforms, they tell me the views and the likes, the shares and downloads it gets. I don't care about how much likes it gets. Yeah, it'd be awesome if a lot of people are listening, but I just want more people to be on. I want people to realize they're interesting. I like it when someone goes, I had an amazing time. I post everyone's feedback on their episodes. I still have yet to post yours. And when I do post yours, I want to hear you listen to it. I want to make sure you love it. And then if you share it, that's cool. But I'm not going to force you to. I'm not going to get upset if you don't. I want you to have an enjoyed time on it. And I want to make sure that the experience was awesome. Because for me, it is awesome.
oh, and I want you to hear my podcast, and look, you're welcome to listen to like my other episodes, too, as well. Like I'm so like I guess kind of like the other thing for me too is like I kind of started this podcast kind of like uh mainly focusing on politics, and then like because when I was in high school, I wanted to get into political radio like really bad in Denver. And so for the first couple of years of doing my original podcast, the Whitfield Analysis, like I ran it like a traditional radio show. And then when I was a senior in high school, like I went to a convention, and like I actually found the station manager for one of the local talk stations, and I told him who I am, and I actually like sent him a link to like some of my stuff, and he actually came back to me the next morning. We were in a hotel, and he's like, I real like your stuff, and like all the other radio hosts were like your stuff. Like if it were up to me, I would bring you on, to like try you out for a bit. But corporate doesn't want people um, under 18 without without like some sort of college degree in broadcasting. And so that kind of uh, that was a bummer. But then I was also planning to move to Florida, and I mean, so at that point, like I don't know, I guess the radio dream kind of evolved, and I was kind of like, well, let me just experiment more with this podcasting thing. And so like I started listening to like Joe Rogan and like Adam Carolla and how they were doing their podcast like more conversationally, and I'm like, well, I think I'd like to try this kind of like adapting. So what if I did this? So like I evolved it from more to like you know from more like strictly politics to pop culture to just kind of like rants, like I said before. Sometimes like I'll just hit record and rant like by myself on like whatever kind of like Bill Burr style. And so for me, this podcast has like evolved a lot from what it originally was. And that's part of the fun of this too, is like seeing how the medium has changed a lot too. So
Yeah, the world's changing and adapting. The problem is it's hard to stay doing what you want to do with the concept of views and likes and stuff in your mind. A lot of people choose that and they think, well, this is getting a certain amount of likes, so maybe I should do this. And then that might throw the whole vibe of the show off. It might throw the whole concept of, you might not enjoy it, but it might get you views. Once you stop enjoying it, you're not going to be as productive in producing it and putting work towards it. It's going to turn into a job. You don't ever want it to feel like a job.
Well, and and I am on YouTube and I do live stream, and I enjoy that. But you're right. I mean, the way YouTube works sucks because you basically have to like hit 1,000 subs before they like actually give you any worthwhile tools. So I mean that's like the other thing. Like a lot of these companies like Twitter and Instagram, like they want you to have like massive followers because it you know because that means more revenue for them. But like I only have 1,000 followers on Twitter, which is relatively small. But like that's fine. Like I don't need 10K, followers to feel better on myself. Like I have, friends in my real life and, people who I've met like, you through this online journey who validate me much more than, just like,
You can call me a friend, Nate or Sam.
I appreciate that, Robbie. And you can call me a friend too. So
I keep calling you Nate on accident because your last name is the same as one of my buddies, Nate Whitfield, and he is actually on my podcast too. But I've been friends with him forever, so immediately I just think of both of you. I think Whitfield.
you can call me Nate. You can call me
Sadly, you're a little bit better than Nate. No offense to Nate out there. Love you, Nate.
you can call me Tom, or whatever you want. Just don't call me asshole, or like or anything that like one of my ex-girlfriends might call me. So
Dude, let me tell you something, man. If you keep this podcast going, you're going to see nothing but amazing feelings and at least amazing inspiration from it, dude, because it's a good concept, dude. And it's definitely something the world needs out there, a little bit more creativity in a world that's lacking creativity.
I'm 12 years into this. I'm 12 years into it. So, and that's the other thing too is I mean, I wish more people would realize that you can't make like something work overnight. Like, so I don't know. I know you're on Facebook, but are you in the Anchor like Connect community or whatever it's called?
I don't know what I'm involved in. I'm on Craigslist selling conversations for a nickel a pop. I don't know. I honestly I'm trying to expand the reach, but I'm not too worried about it. I think people will end up finding it, but also, it's hard to see who's not trying to get just a platform to sell their product. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I've I've had plenty of those people, too. They just want me to like sell their book, and I'm like, I'm not really interested in that unless it's like an author that I want to talk to. I don't want people just to come on and show their products. I already have Anchor sponsors to do that, and even those sometimes feel a little weird sometimes. So I don't know, but
Well, man, I mean, I've had a good experience on this podcast. It's been pretty cool talking to you.
yeah, I've had a good time too, sir. Thanks for coming on, and you're welcome back anytime.
For
So
sure, man. Hit me up with another day. I'm down to be on the Whitfield report. I like that. It makes it sound official. When I say out of the blank, people are like, "What is that?"
I
Like
I
a
think it's a cool name. I do want to ask real quick, how'd you come up with that name?
because out of the blank. What do you think it means?
I just think like anything can happen.
There you
So
go.
yeah, it's a cool name.
That's
So
why I did a spinoff called Fill in the Blank, where then we focused on specific topics, which were mostly like conspiracy theories and dumb stuff you never would have thought of.
Clever. Well, I'll be sure to check out that one too. You said my favorite word, which is conspiracy theory. So, um,
Dude,
but
you gotta look up my other podcast, man, and just look at some of the stuff we talked about, and then have me back on because I'll shoot the shit with you on some stuff because I know I have literally so many articles printed out from when I was doing that podcast where I ended up stopping because I try and post this one every single day, and I found it before where I was getting real personal interviews, like people in front of me, like real conversations with people. It was harder to do because people would always bail out last minute. So it was always safe to have a fallback type thing where I could still post,
uh-huh.
which was this other podcast where I would just have my friends over that were on it, like Tashawn Collins and Evan, Chris Rourke, all these guys. And they just came over and I'm like, what are you interested in? They're like, 19th century Victorian surgery. I'm like, the fuck? Okay. All right. I'll give me 2 days. I'll come back to you. And then my one buddy's like, I'm interested in weird history. I'm like, what's weird history? They're like, I don't know, like foods. I'm like, give me what? Is it foods or weird history? Next thing I know, I look up how cornflakes was created, and it was created to prevent masturbation. I'm like, all right, well, here's a topic we're going to shoot the crap on for 30 minutes. And next thing you know, a podcast was created.
That's why I don't eat cornflakes either. So, but
I feel like it's a good way to keep yourself sane through the day, so you're not just randomly jerking off in people's houses.
well, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that. You know, like a lot of people I know don't have that problem. I certainly don't. But you know, I like to go back to Rogan's bit too. Uh, and I'm going to butcher it, so apologies to Joe Rogan. But I think it's something along the lines of you don't want to go on a date without jerking off first because you're going to make bad decisions as a
Well,
result.
he says no one talks rationally or thinks rationally when they're pent up with all this extra juice. And it's the concept of that's true. If you jack off before you talk to a girl that you think you really want to get with and you really want to start a relationship with, I guarantee you 99.9% of the time your thoughts are going to change because you are not thinking rationally. It's like being drunk. Your expectations and your bars get set to a really low standard when you're on the concept of I need to get this out of me. It's sad. It's sad, but it's true. You make rational decisions when you're just empty. And that's probably the best advice for anybody. If you're going into something big, thinking you're jumping headfirst into something and not thinking about it clearly, just jack off. And then afterwards, you'll be like, oh shit, I can't
Yep.
set my house on fire for insurance money because I'll get caught.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Well, hey man, I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast and
Hopefully it works for you, man, with this episode. I don't know what the hell the focus was, but it was awesome talking.
it was a conversational podcast and you know since we're and for those of you who are listening, we're actually doing this on Monday, but you'll be hearing this on Thursdays. So I'm interested since it's more towards the end of the week when people will be hearing this, like what their reaction is going to be. So, but anyway, dude, I'll uh I'll cut the audio and then we'll sign off after that. Thanks for listening, folks, and I'll talk to you on Saturday. So.